Alright, welcome back. So we are into week 5, lesson 2. We're going to look at pipeline commands and multiple commands on the same line, or commands spanning multiple lines. Different ways you can do that. So we're going to look at the purpose of of pipeline commands. We sort of mentioned this earlier if you looked at lesson 1 video, or the week 5 lesson 1 video, how to take the output of one command and use it as the input of the next, and your pipeline command syntax, which is a pipe, so that's shift and the on my keyboard anyway, it's the key right above my enter and below my backspace. And we're going to look at the T command, which we looked at redirecting things. T will allow you to redirect to a file as well as see the output on the screen, which could be useful, depending on the syntax that you're doing. For executing multiple commands, we're going to look at using the semicolon to execute one command after the next, and grouping commands together using parentheses or round brackets, and how to issue large Linux commands spread out over multiple lines. And this will map to your week 5 tutorial investigation 1 and 2, and the remainder of your practice questions, questions 5 through 12. And note, there's another reference to assignment 2 that I totally missed when editing these slides. It won't be fixed till well after this by now. You'll be watching this recording with it in it, but that's just ignore that. We don't have that assignment that we're dealing with. So, pipeline commands use the special symbol, which is a pipe. It's like that. It's called a pipe, and it allows a command's standard output to be redirected into the standard input of another command, without having to use a temporary file to store the output in. So you can pipe multiple commands together. You can combine multiple commands to perform some really, really cool, powerful things. We're going to look at some examples of how to do that. Usually when you build these up, you do it slowly, one command at a time. So you'll take the first one, you'll get your output the way you want it, and then you'll pipe it into the second thing, and you'll get that the way you want it. And you'll just kind of keep building it up like that. You shouldn't have any issues. So some examples here. We have ls-al, which will give you a long listing including all files, and maybe that's more than you want to see on your screen. So you're going to pipe that to more, so you can browse through it. You may want to reverse sort the output of ls, so you could do that. You may have too much information there, so you may want to sort it and pipe it to more, so you can browse through it. Useful use of that. We can do things like pipe to cut and look at very specific output. And I actually got a really cool example where we're going to look at that. All kinds of neat stuff. You could even do things like combine head and tail here. So if you want like the 3rd and 4th line, or in this case it's the 6th and 7th line in a file, head-7. So it'll give us the top 7 lines of a file, and then pipe that to tail -2. It's going to give us the bottom 2 lines of this output. Really useful, interesting stuff. So any command to the right of a pipe symbol is referred to as a filter. And they're referred to as that because they modify the standard output of the previous command. Many of these commands can be piped together, but these must be chained in a specific order depending on what you want to accomplish. So let's take a look at some of these, shall we? I think they make, you've probably heard enough talking, they make more sense when you actually do them. So I'm going to clear my output. Just bear with me for a second. Yeah, I want to make sure that I'm on the correct slides. So I'm going to do an ls-al. Or LA, doesn't matter which order you put them in, and we see all of our output here. So that's not a lot of command, but let's maybe look at etc. And we see that that's a lot of output, right? We have a lot of stuff here. Well, let's maybe we want to scroll through that, but not necessarily on our command line like this. We could pipe that to more, and then suddenly we can just scroll through as we get through. Q to get out of that, of course. And maybe we want to see that output, but in reverse order. We could sort -R. And again, we're going to have the same problem. That's a lot of output, so maybe we want to pipe that to more as well. And then we can scroll through that, so now we have it in reverse alphabetical order. So, all kinds of useful stuff there. I'm just going to get out of this. We have this file from earlier that we created. Didn't we create it? Never mind, we didn't create output.txt. But we did create a users file earlier, so let's take a look at that. I'm just going to make a note of that here. So let's say we only want the top 4 or the bottom 4. Well, we could use head. I'm going to go actually 7. Top 7 or bottom 7. Users.txt. And there we get the top 7 users. Maybe we want these two, which would be 6 and 7 in that. So we could do tail -2. Note, we could also do, this should work as well. Not quite, because I see it's waiting for output there. And you could do the reverse. We could do get the bottom 7 and get the top 2 from that output. Whoops. Note, see, I didn't have things in the right order. That could cause some problems. And then finally, a slightly more advanced using this file that you recall we got earlier. So I'm going to use some, we were doing some things with cut in the first lecture. I'm going to clear my screen, and I'm going to build on that. So let's look at users.txt again, just to see what we've got. So we got some stuff there. Now let's say, for argument's sake, we want to cut just the IP addresses in here. And we don't just want to cut our IP addresses. We want to find out how many unique IP addresses we have. How might we do that? Well, we're going to use some fairly advanced piping here, and we're going to build it up slowly. So let's cut, specifying the delimiter of a opening round bracket, field 2, and users.txt. And let's see what that gives us. So there we go. We've isolated our output a little bit. We still have this closing bracket, though. We don't necessarily want that. So we can pipe that to translate, and translate our closing bracket to nothing. Getting closer to there. And we can actually, nope, can't be empty, so it's just an empty string there, technically. Now we only want unique entries, and we've got some duplicate entries here. See this, this 1, 2, and one ending in 127 is in twice. So we could pipe that to unique, and there we just have unique entries. Now if we want to find out actually how many we have here without looking at the output, we could pipe that to a word count -L. We know that our output has unique IP addresses from our users.txt file. So there were 11 users logged in. when we ran this command. Kind of cool. Alternatively, you could get the number of characters in that output, or the number of words in that output. And words is going to equal our lines here because there's one word per line, right? Characters might not be particularly useful in this context. So it's just some interesting ways you can use that. We're going to look at some more uses of pipeline commands with T momentarily. Alright, so let's continue on. So T can be used to split the flow of the standard output between your terminal and the text file. So maybe you want to see this in both places. You want it to go to the text file, but you still want to see what's going into the text file for sanity checking. And note, you can also add the -A option to append it to the text file instead of rewrite or completely overwriting the file. But the reason for the command being called T is the split of the flow of information represents a capital T, so it goes to two places. So some examples of these, if we look at them now, we have, make sure I have this file, we should have, we have sorted.txt, which is not what I necessarily wanted. Let me go get that file that I need for this. Hold on a second. Alright, so the file I thought I had was not there. Sorry about that. Let's take a look. I have a file that I created that's got everything I want in it. So we have apple, orange, bird, professor, just a bunch of words, right? Cat, next, dog, Linux, OSL640, students, and 1. I put that into unsorted.txt, so we can see what's there. Let's say we want to sort that. So we could use the sort command, right? On unsorted.txt. Whoops. It helps if you spell sort correctly. And there we go, it sorted it alphabetically. But let's say we want to see that on the screen and also save it to a file. We could use T, sorted.txt. Whoops, my usage is incorrect there. And then, if we look, we now have sorted.txt, and if we cat sorted.txt, we have our output. So we got our output on our screen, and we redirected it to a file, which could be useful. Again, depending on the context of what you're doing. All of this stuff it seems like a silly example, but it could be extremely useful depending on what you're doing. So if we want to, we could do an ls, right? Well, maybe we only want the top 5. So we could pipe that to head 5. Whoops. Got my dash in the wrong spot. It's clearly been a lengthy day of stuff. And I might want to T that and append it to listing.txt. And then if I cat listing.txt, I could do it again and see it appended. And for any more information, you may want to have a peek at the T man page, which there is one there. Yeah, interesting, kind of useful. It's a command that's been around for a long time. Lots of interesting uses for T. So there, you've got some interesting uses for pipes. We looked at using that users.txt and counting the number of unique IP addresses we had, sorting files and redirecting it with T so we get it to our standard out and to a file as well. All kinds of neat stuff. Finally, multiple commands. So sometimes you may wish to run multiple commands within a single command line. And you can do this by separating the commands with a semicolon. And the way this works is it will only execute the next command in sequence if the previous command successfully executes. As soon as there's an error encountered, the entire chain of commands will cease. And you can group these together using parentheses if you want to force these commands to be run together and then redirected to a file. And note, all the command output in this would be sent to a single file, which would be useful. We can also split a command over multiple lines using a backslash. So if we have a large amount of text that's running off our screen, you may just want it to make it a little easier to read. So you can do this with a backslash, separating each line out. So let's have a peek at some of those, shall we? So I'm going to issue the sleep command. This will pause for 5 seconds and then do an ls as soon as that sleep is up. And there we go. See, that worked. It's kind of cool. A common one that may be useful in your next semester course. Don't execute this in Matrix, or don't try to anyway. You don't actually get the opportunity to do so. If we were going to update my system, and I do this all the time on my home system, sudo apt get, because I'm using a Debian-based system. We're going to learn more about what that means in a few weeks. -y will auto-assume yes, I want to update. And then I could power off immediately after, or even reboot immediately after. Again, useful stuff, just kind of getting you to think about how you can use some of these things in a more practical setting. I don't want that to execute, so I'm just going to get rid of that. I want to show you grouping commands, so we're going to echo who is on, on, followed by who, and we're going to redirect that to who's on.text. Now we can cat who's on, and we see, oh, look at that. Here is our output. And then finally, this is a very long command and will be split over multiple lines. And we're going to, whoops, I wasn't quite done. I want to pipe that to a TR. We're going to translate lowercase to uppercase. And there you go. Interesting ways of utilizing that. So if you've got a particularly long command, you want to just clean up your output a little bit, you can do that. Very useful. Oops, I did this. I skipped ahead and did that. And if you want some more practice with this, well, of course, you should do Tutorial 5, Investigation 2 and 3. And the practice questions 6 to 12 in Tutorial 5 will directly map to this content. And that's it for week 5. So take care, be safe. I will see you in this week's lab class. Bye for now. Good luck.